Okay, quick recap. E-bikes in the UK maximum power 250 watts. That's about a third of a horsepower. So factor in, you've got 100 kilograms rider and bike combined. So that's about 3 horsepower per ton. Okay, not a lot of power there. Actually, well, more than a horse. So it shouldn't be too bad, but nowhere near a car. So we want to be using as much of that as possible. So the question is, how do we control that power? How do we get it to unleash? Well, let's just go back to the graph for a minute. Let's just see what we're actually trying to control. So for instance, let's say we're going at 2 meters per second. Okay, the bike can put out 120 newtons of force. Okay, anything up to 120 newtons. So what you're controlling is how much force the bike is pushing, how much the motor is actually helping. So you would have thought you should be able to access any of this range because that's within the capabilities of the bike. Okay, obviously if you're going faster, then the amount of force available is less, and so on. This is the graph from the previous video. If you haven't seen it, check it out. So how do you control that? Well, on a car you use your foot. On a motorbike you use your hands. Well, on a pedal cycle you use the pedals. Okay, you already know there are 2 versions: torque sensing and cadence sensing. So torque sensing, it detects how hard you're pedaling, and what that does is it multiplies. There is a fixed value. Okay, so on the Bosch active line, the maximum you can get is 2.5. So you pedal with 1 unit of force, and the bike will give you 2.5 units on top of that. So it'll boost you along. The benefit of this is it feels very natural, because if you stop pedaling, if you pedal lightly, it pushes you along lightly. If you pedal really hard, it goes really hard. Well, what does that look like on a graph? So here is rider output. I've done this in watts. So how hard I'm pedaling, and up here is how hard the motor is going. So notice the motor can only go up to 250 because that's the legal limit. Okay, and what I can go up to, I don't know how hard I can ride, but for me to get the bike to go at 250 watts, I've got to be contributing 100 watts. Okay, because the best the multiplier is set at 2.5. That's the highest level on the Bosch active line, the basic one, not the sport one. Now, in my mind, this is quite frustrating because this is a limitation based on firmware. There's no. If I'm not allowed to modify this because otherwise it would affect a type rating. Well, it will be difficult to convince the person stopping you, inspecting you, that you haven't broken the law. Anyway, so this is limited by the manufacturer, 2.5. So for me to get the bike to help me along, I've got to be putting in quite a bit of effort. 100 watts, is that a lot of effort? It's about 231 split on the ergo. So that's the gentle warm down. That's barely any wattage, but for a half an hour ride, I would be. Well, that is some effort, isn't it? Okay, so you've got these modes. So if you have a lower mode, then you would be on a graph which is of a lower gradient. Okay, so this is a straightforward graph here. Y equals mx plus c. M here is a gradient. So if I'm 1 to 1, then it will be something like this. Okay. Let me just draw this out. If I was going on the mode 1 to 1, look something like this, I'd have to be pushing out 250 watts for the bike to match me. Okay, obviously I don't really want to do 250 watts because that's a 151 split on the ergo. I'm going to be knackered. Okay, so let's look at the next one. The next one is cadence sensing. Okay, so with the cadence sensing, what's actually happening is it just detects that I am pedaling, and it aims for a target speed. So if I have it on the maximum setting, it will aim for 15 miles an hour, 25 kilometers an hour. So I could be pedaling along at a very low wattage, 10, 15 watts, just getting the pedals turning, and the bike would be able to push out 250 watts. I'll be able to access more from the motor. I'll be in this range here, this region here, which cannot be accessed by the torque sensing. I'll say that again. With the cadence sensing, I can operate in a region, in this region here, which cannot be accessed by the torque sensing motor. Because in this region, I am putting out 10, 15 watts, okay, but the bike is putting out 250 watts. Even with the Bosch active line, the race version, I think it is, the maximum in that's 3 or 3.5, okay, you still need to be putting out a good wattage for it to get you to the 250. With the cadence sensing, I can put out 0 wattage, just rotate the pedals, and I can still get 250. And that is a free lunch. I mean, I've got to charge the battery, but that is free pedaling. Okay, the bike is doing all the work. From a transportation perspective, that's exactly what I want. Okay, let's just explain this with an analogy. Okay, so if you imagine that for some strange reason the government says that it will pay for you to go out and eat, and it says that it will pay half your bill for you, up to £20. That's a pretty good deal. You pay £10, you get £20 worth of food. Now, let's say I give you a different deal. Let's say that I just give you £10 for free, and you can go and top up however much you want to get. Let's say you want the ribeye. It's going to cost you a bit more. Okay, rump steak, £10. That should do it. This time you want a T-bone, maybe. Okay, so you're got to pay up. Okay, so I can add £5 here or not. I can add £10 or not. But the point is, I've got the £10 for free. Okay, which is a better deal? Well, I think you realize the second one's a better deal. Okay, the second one, you just get £10 for free. That's what's happening with the cadence sensor. Okay, you can trick the bike into doing all the work. Now, is that better? Well, in my view, absolutely, because I'm using it to commute. Okay, on when I'm going on holiday and there's a e-bike rental available, yeah, I would absolutely go for the torque sensing because that's more fun on the mountain. But for the commute or just pootling around town, cadence sensor much better. Okay, I do have to mention something about battery range and efficiency. You will find that the manufacturer listed battery range is much higher for torque sensing systems. The reason for this isn't, it may well be more efficient, but it isn't mainly due to efficiency. It's to do with the fact that the torque sensing system is very good at getting the rider to contribute. So if you think about this situation where for the motor to be putting out 250 watts, the rider's putting in 100 watts. Well, that means that at any point the rider's got to be putting in a lot more effort, a lot more energy, and that's where the range boost comes from. Is because the rider is putting in the effort. So in conclusion, cadence sensor. If you want an easy ride, that's what you want. Okay, you want the cadence. If you want a bit more responsive ride, and a bit more like a cycle, pedal cycle, then you want the torque sensing. I mean, I have ridden both, and I actually bought a torque sensing Bosch active line, and I took it back to the shop because I preferred the cadence sensing. I want to get to work, and I wanted to get there without having to huff and puff